Harry and Mosey at Mrs. Hopper's house. Read together. Ready to read? Let's read right now. A sweeter dance. Valentine's Day was coming. Harry and his big dog Mudge loved Valentine's Day because of the candy. They liked the little candy hearts that said, "Your smile," and "Oh dear," and things like that. Harry read the words and Mudge licked them off. They were a good team. On the Valentine's Day, Harry's father and Harry's mother are going to a sweeter dance. Harry and Mudge would be staying with Mrs. Hopper. Mrs. Hopper lived across the street in a big stone house with trumpy trees and dark windows and gargoyle on the door. Harry liked Mrs. Hopper, but he didn't like her house. "Are you sure Mose and I can't come to the sweeter dance?" Harry asked his father. "Only if you both promise to wear a tuxedo and shiny black shoes and wear this to the blue damp," said Harry's father. Harry looked at Muzzy and tried to imagine him in a tuxedo and shiny black shoes, whistling to a blue bamboo. "I think we'd better go to Mrs. Hopper," Harry said. "Good idea," said his father, "because Mose only knows how to tap dance," Harry said with a grin. Mrs. Hopper. On Valentine's night, Harry's parents got all dressed up. Harry looked at them. "Wow," he said. "I bet you didn't know I was this handsome," said Harry's dad. "I did," said Harry's mother, giving him a kiss. "Ugh, too much stuff," Harry said to Muzzy. "Let's get to Mrs. Hopper's house quick." At Mrs. Hopper's house, Muzzy licked the gargoyle on the front door. Harry giggled. "He didn't scare you, Muzzy," Harry said. When Mrs. Hopper opened the door, she had a violin in her hand. She smiled at Harry. She petted Muzzy. She said goodbye to Harry's parents, and Harry and Muzzy went inside. He had never been inside Mrs. Hopper's house before. It was like a castle. There were big chandeliers and tall paintings and a grand piano and lots of mossy cats everywhere. "How many cats do you have, Mrs. Hopper?" asked Harry. 11, said Mrs. Hopper. "All girls." Mozzie looked at the cats and wiggled. "Mozzie loves cats," Harry told Mrs. Hopper. Mrs. Hopper patted Mozzie again. "Mozzie loves everything," she said. Harry smiled. Mrs. Hopper's house wasn't bad. It was wonderful. Maybe his parents would dance all night long. costumes. Mrs. Hooper wasn't like anyone Harry had ever met. She played the violin for him. She served him tea. She told him about her father, who had been a famous actor. She was very kind to Muzzy. She cooked him a bowl of oatmeal and gave him his one loaf of French bread. After tea and music and oatmeal, Mrs. Hooper took them upstairs. She opened a room that had been her father's. "Wow," said Harry. The room was full of costumes. There were silk caps and tall hats and shiny coats. There were cans and swords and umbrellas. There were wings. Mrs. Hooper put a wig on Muzzy. "You look like a poodle, Muzzy," said Harry. Mudge welcomed and wiggled. Harry and Muzzy and Mrs. Hooper spent most of evening in the costume room. They had a wonderful time. And when Harry's parents came back from the dance, were they ever surprised? Muzzy was a poodle and Harry was a man. Harry wore a tuxedo and hat and shiny black shoes. "I bet you didn't know I was this handsome," Harry told his dad, and everyone laughed and laughed. Don't forget to watch my video or subscribe my channel. And if I want to see this more video, you have to like this button first. Thank you for watching. Let's read together.